Lucy Nichol. First up on today's show, our journalist Weddy goes to the Palestinian Film Festival to take a look at the very best of Palestinian cinema.
It is the 6th year to introduce the Palestinian Film Festival. What does it aim for, and how do such films would represent the Palestinian issues?
I'm here today because of the Palestinian Film Festival. I think it's very important to be bringing Palestine to Perth so that people are aware of actually what's going on in Palestine. Kind of breaks up some of the stereotypes and people are able to see it from a new light, one that you don't really see in the media and you don't see in all Hollywood movies. So I'm Palestinian myself, and so I kind of long for going back and to seeing my family, and this kind of brings a little bit of home to Perth.
The event today is the Palestinian Film Festival, which started 7 or 8 years ago in Sydney by Cultural Media, and it's grown over the years, and it's coming to Perth now for the second time. The main aim of this festival is to remind Australia and the world that in Palestine we don't only have politics. It's very, very important for everyone to know about their culture, where they came from, where their parents came from, especially in our case where we don't have a country anymore. So that identity is really, really crucial. And through this film festival, we can bring it forward to the fore.
The stories in these films are very rarely reflected on Australian screens. The films give a real insight into the Arabs' struggle and their fight for freedom. But there are also stories of love, relationships, and family. It's a good way of educating non-Arabs for those who want to learn more about the Middle East and to those who want to discover their roots.
The film festival is over 3 days. The feature film today is The Wanted 18. It's a fascinating story about a small village near, I think it's near Bethlehem in the Palestinian West Bank, where the families decide they're sick of buying Israeli milk, and they want to make their own milk. So they buy 18 cows from a friendly Israeli settler in a kibbutz. And they start making their own milk. And the Israeli authorities realize, we're not selling any milk to this town anymore. What's going on? So they go and search and find out what's happening. And then you have these 18 cows being hidden from house to house. And then they become a political threat to the state of Israel. Basically, that's how they're identified. The feature from tomorrow is Eyes of a Thief. It's a story about someone who returns to his home to look for his family, to look for his beloved ones. And it's a dramatic story. There's a little bit of black comedy in it. And it showcases the life of Palestinians, basically, dispossessed. And how they survive. On the third day we have Love and Other Entanglements. It's the story of a Palestinian thief in the West Bank who goes around stealing cars. His specialty is stealing cars. But he mistakenly steals a car that has a kidnapped Israeli in the boot. And so now he has the people who kidnapped the Israeli chasing him and the Israeli forces chasing him.
Showcasing the very best of the Palestinian cinema from around the globe, the festival presents an exciting opportunity to see and feel the energy, diversity and creativity of Palestine through film, one of the most talked about places on earth.
From my point of view, I think these festivals are really important because it teaches those people who are not familiar with our culture the real image of our Palestinian heritage and what we are going through as Palestinian on a daily basis, and also for our children because they educate them more about their heritage and they make the distance much, much closer.
I think there is a big misunderstanding and misconception about what's happening in Palestine, and there is less representation of the Palestinian people and their struggle in the Western media. So I believe that this film festival will gonna bring more of the Palestinian voiceness in Western Australia.
I think it's important as well to show Palestine through the eyes of Palestinians, because the mainstream media might show you one side of the story, but there's another side that's not told or isn't allowed. It's not allowed to be told. It's important for our kids to know a bit more about their homeland, about their culture, about where they came from.
Over the last 5 years or so, Palestinian drama has really caught up with the world. We're getting films that are getting nominations in film festivals all over the world, and Oscar nominations as well. We've had 2 to 3 Oscar nominations in the last 2 to 3 years. So the festival always starts in Sydney. That's where cultural media is based. And this year was an incredible turnout, much more than we expected. Out of the 10 sessions in Sydney and Melbourne, 7 were sellouts. In Canberra, a lot of people attended as well. Not sure about the numbers yet for Canberra because that's very recent, but we know that it was a very good turnout, better than previous years. So we're hopeful that we will achieve good numbers in Perth as well.
The cultural media was pleased to present the 2015 Palestinian Film Festival. As with previous Palestinian film festivals, this year's festival surprised and delighted, as well as informed and challenged. For Undercurrent, with Abu Jalala.
A group of Western Australian university students have developed the very first electric jet ski. Jack Middleton went down to Matilda Bay to see the electric jet ski's first demonstration.
It's just a regular quiet day here at Matilda Bay. Or is it? Well, yes, it is in fact. UWA students have recently designed Australia's first electric jet ski. And today, they're giving it a test drive.
It's surreal. When you first get on it, you switch it on, there's no sound, there's no fanfare to say that it's on. And you throttle up and you're moving. Thomas has been supervising it, and then the designs and everything as well, with his oversight, have been developed by students, all put together. So we've put in a whole bunch of different safety systems. We're complying with all the various Australian standards for electricity on water. It's a bit stricter than building, say, an electric vehicle. We've got sensors that shut it down in the event of something going wrong, as well as everything being double insulated. So if something does break, there's always a second point of failure beyond that to keep you safe.
So I'm a mechanical engineer at UWA. So I've been helped designing the cooling system and a lot of the mechanical aspects. I'm one of the more experienced jet ski drivers, so I'm the one that gets to test it when we head out for the water testing. We've put in a lot of hard work, so to finally be getting it on the water and doing the on-water tests is really exciting and really rewarding as well.
We've been doing the REV project for about 8 years now, and we've converted a number of electric cars, but cars are now commonplace. So the next project idea was doing an electric jet ski or electric boat. That's why we did this, because most people love jet skis because they're fun to ride, but many people hate jet skis because they're really noisy and they also pollute the air and the environment. We just charge this from any power point, preferably using renewable energy, and then we're good to go, in this case for half an hour. Well, you're limited to, I would say, 1 hour, maybe 2 hours if you have more batteries in there, but recharge time at that model that we have, which is a prototype, is almost 3 hours. But with DC charging, that comes down to 7 minutes. So 7 minutes is not much more than filling petrol.
Does the new engine affect the speed?
I don't think it makes any difference, no. I think they're not have to be running like a petrol engine, just run their nominal speed.
92.4 volts.
What does 92.4 volts mean?
So that's the volts that the battery pack is currently at. Our minimum, where we start to damage the cells, is 84. But obviously when you're drawing from the battery pack, the voltage drops down quite substantially.
What does damage the cells mean?
They don't hold charge anymore. They swell up a bit and don't hold charge anymore, which kills the whole battery pack. You've got to pull the whole thing out and replace it.
What would cause damaged cells? Would going too fast cause that?
No, just dropping the voltage below their minimum or charging them over their maximum voltage.
Have you ever had that happen?
We've had it happen on a couple of other projects, but these are a different battery chemistry, so they're a lot more robust.
It's the only one in Australia, and there's apparently only 2 in the world, including this one. We've just measured speeds in excess of 40 kilometers an hour. We're still sort of optimizing the parameters, so I think there's quite some leeway to get a bit faster.
Yeah.
Of a milestone now, so the project is sort of finished as of now, so we can use this and show it to interested parties, enjoy it.
So at the moment we don't have actually any data to tell us how fast it's going, and as I said, we're getting it faster and faster every time. So as Thomas said before, I think we're going to get it not quite as fast as a regular jet ski, but pretty close.
We need to shift the battery pack further back. It's a bit nose heavy at the moment. We would love to put newer batteries which have much greater capacity in them. And yeah, we just need to tune up the motor controller, which should give us better responsiveness and better max power. Moving on to electric vehicles will be very exciting. That's definitely the future for transportation.
This has been Jack Middleton reporting for Undercurrent.
Juanita hit the streets of Perth this week to see what Aussies think about the massive difference in carbon emissions of developed countries versus developing countries.
Do you know the impact of carbon dioxide on the environment?
Yeah, I am aware, and frankly, I find some of the statistics a little bit disturbing, you know, as a young West Australian.
Yeah, I do. I'm aware of it, yes.
No, but I know it's bad.
Yes? Not really, no.
How are you reducing carbon emission as an individual?
Not using air conditioners, trying to limit my power usage, catching public transport when possible.
I've personally made the choice to become a vegetarian for environmental reasons, so I'm aware of the environmental impact and the carbon footprint that the red meat industry in particular has.
Well, I try to cycle to uni as much as possible, take public transport, you know, trying to turn off the lights before I leave home. Just trying to, you know, be aware of it. You know, it's a big issue and, you know, climate change is happening.
Statistics have shown that developed countries are the ones producing high carbon emission. Developing countries also produce high carbon emission through manufacturing products for the developed countries. However, the less developed countries are the ones facing the consequences of global warming. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, clearly there's definitely an inequality. Yeah, it's difficult to know what to do as an average West Australian.
It sucks that we are impacting on them in a negative way, I guess. Yeah, no, it's not good because we have more and they're getting impacted worse than we are.
I think that's a statement of fact. So we understand that we're benefiting from a lifestyle that's afforded, that's at the expense of some less developed countries.
Not good, obviously, yeah.
In a recent report, Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull announced that $1 billion will be set aside to help this cause. However, the amount is insufficient and continuous temperature rise could lead to the disappearance of the Great Barrier Reef. How do you think the community can come together to help?
I guess it would be really good if we could all raise some kind of funding to help support it.
We can raise funds, all like pitch in together, do fundraisers, that sort of stuff.
Whether they will or how they can do it. I don't imagine that many people are willing to take a knock in their standard of living in order to protect the environment. I don't think there's the commitment.
How do you think the government could further step up to help with this situation?
I'm not really sure. They just sort of need to step up. They don't really do that much.
Probably not worry so much about going to wars, and put some money back into this, obviously.
I hope that we could work together to create a healthier environment. I am Vernida Azman reporting for Undercurrent.
Now it's time for a quick break to hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back with more. Welcome back to Undercurrent. Donald Trump. He used to be known for his hair, or lack thereof. Now there's talk that he may become the next president of the United States. Journalist Jack Middleton looks at the use of narratives within the media and how they are used in relation to Donald Trump.
Hello, I'm Jack Middleton. Now I'm going to be talking to you this week about narratives. Now, not narratives within stories or films like Star Wars, which comes out this week and I'm super excited about it, but that's important. That comes back later, I promise. Now I'm talking to you about narratives in the world around us, the real world. Narratives that can be used to persuade ideologies or but used by the media to further certain agendas. For example, the refugee crisis, the Paris attacks, the knifing on the London Underground, the shooting in California, which was done by legally bought guns, by the way, they can all be used to further the narrative of ISIS. For example, the shooting at a Colorado abortion clinic which killed 3 innocent people. People are calling this guy a Christian terrorist because he was a Christian, when in fact people need to detach themselves from larger things around a person. People need to focus on what really turns these individuals into murdering people. Could it be negative emotions like fear and hate? Now, this is getting less coverage because it doesn't promote the ISIS narrative, which people can use to their advantage. For example, one man in particular.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on.
What the hell is going on? I'll tell you what's going on. It's a very complicated set of events that started decades ago, which has resulted in the very poor people resorting to guerrilla warfare tactics, and a lot of it's got to do with foreign American intervention.
We're going to have to figure it out. We have to figure it out. We can't live like this. It's going to get worse and worse. You're going to have more World Trade Centers. It's going to get worse and worse.
It's getting worse and worse and worse, and a lot of it's got to do with me. I'm making it worse and worse.
They have no respect for human life.
Hey, do they even know what they're cheering for? Half the time this guy doesn't even make any sense. Now the Pentagon is saying that this rhetoric from Donald Trump is bolstering the ISIL narrative, and it is. This whole what the hell is going on, this fear that he's creating around foreign Muslims and Muslims in general is playing right into ISIS's hands, because that's what they want. That's what terrorism is all about, creating fear. And the more fear around it, the more people will go and join ISIS, because they need more people. That's what they want. They're playing right into their hands.
We have a database system that tracks the Muslims here in this country.
There should be a lot of systems beyond database. I mean, we should have a lot of systems. And today you can do it.
Trump didn't suggest this registration system. The reporter sort of brought that up to him. But the one important thing that occurred as well was that he didn't deny it. In fact, he built upon it.
Right now, we have to have a border, we have to have strength, we have to have a wall, and we cannot let what's happening to this country happen in the
A strength, a wall, a Superman. It's half the time this guy is just saying things.
That's nice.
I mean, do you go to mosques and sign these people up into the system?
Different places. You sign them up at different, but it's all about man.
This is all sounding a little Nazi-ish, actually. Registrations for a particular people with a particular belief. It's sounding very Nazi-ish, in fact. Donald Trump has suggested other ridiculous things, like building a massive wall between the US and Mexico. It seems like everything that comes out of that guy's mouth promotes fear and hate. Now, which brings me right back to Star Wars. I told you it would come back. Now, we all like stories about war. They offer us sort of an analogy for the possibilities of our own selves and the possibilities of our own evil as well as our own good. They're a time of conflict, and we enjoy to see that on film. What we've got to not do is confuse that with real life. Don't let yourself get fooled into thinking it's really simple. Things like this are very, very complicated and can't be explained in a simple narrative. And to promote those narratives is a sort of a negative approach. You've got to analyze individual situations. You can't just fix it by shutting a certain people out and vilifying a certain group of people. That's too simple. It's not like this person's good because I said, and this person's bad because I said they are. It's not like Star Wars where there's a light side and a dark side. So when you do go and see Star Wars on the 17th, and hopefully it'll be a great film, enjoy that. But then when you come out, detach yourself from the explosions and the spaceships and the quick decision making and the fast developing plot line. Heroes and villains, it's not that simple. You've got to analyze further into situations, and as we all know, negative emotions like fear and hate automatically lead to the dark side. So with that, I'm Jack Middleton. May the force be with you.
The new Museum of Perth shows our beautiful city in a historical light. Weddy visited the local cafe there and watched some interesting screenings of some documentaries.
What started as a dream finally became a reality. Mr. Robertson moved back to Perth after 20 years living overseas. Being fascinated with the historic architecture of Perth, started a degree in museum studies and opened his own Museum of Perth. Robertson started Facebook page and Twitter in 2012 to share unseen historic images of the city, which quickly gained a following, and he began to dream of one day founding a bricks and mortar museum.
This idea came just born from viewing other museums around the world that dealt with their city's history. So the Museum of London was a big influence for me. I was staggered to find there was a museum dealing specifically with the city's history, and obviously London has a 2,000-year plus history, and I envisaged something like that for Perth, because when I came back to Perth I looked at Perth's history and thought it's not as long, but it's still as interesting. It depends on what we focus on. So I set up a Twitter and Facebook accounts and just showed old pictures of Perth at the time, and I got really good response, which made me realise that there was a real need for history in Perth. Then about 6 months after, I had an article published on the ABC about the museum, and we were picking up quite a few Twitter followers at the time. And then Reece Harley approached me and said to me, I'd love the idea of a museum of Perth. It had been discussed many years in Perth, but nothing had been actually done about it. We walked around Perth one afternoon and talked about what it might look like, what we could do, how we could do it.
The board has leased a space in Grand Lane behind Barrack Street in the city and have launched a crowdfunding campaign for $100,000 to fit out the space as a museum. The space will also include a cafe, and in honor of that, one of the first exhibitions at the museum will focus on a very modern obsession, coffee.
We're located in Grand Theatre Lane, between the Murray Street Mall and Wellington Street. We're down the back in this old building, and we're co-located with a little cafe called Henry Saw. Henry Saw is the man who first roasted coffee in Perth in 1852, so we've named the cafe after him.
After a crowdfunding campaign raised just over $10,000, the museum opened its first exhibition last weekend. The permanent exhibition was a timeline of Perth's development.
We've also, because we're co-located with the cafe, they're paying some of our overheads and rent. We've gone out to the public to crowdsource funding for the museum, and we're also selling books and gifts and other items, as well as having donations from the public to try and tick over and to try and pay the costs of the museum. But yes, like lots of cultural organisations, we could always do with more funding, and we're having conversations with corporate partners and philanthropists at the moment to try and generate some more support.
Future exhibitions planned include the history of coffee culture in Perth and a collaboration with Pride to celebrate 25 years of the event in Western Australia. So, history buff Dallas Robertson started his Museum of Perth's social media accounts for a university assignment, and now, almost 3 years later, it is set to become a reality. For Undercurrent, with Diana Boujalala.
The Watercolour Society of WA has been very busy painting against cancer. Laura Novo went down to Sir Charles Gardner Hospital to take a look at the uplifting paintings in the cancer patient waiting room.
The Watercolour Society of WA, in conjunction with Sir Charles Gardner Hospital, are presenting Artists in Residence. Today we are here at Sir Charles Gardner Hospital, where art has been taken to oncology waiting rooms. What makes this exhibition so special?
This exhibition came about from an idea of the Watercolour Society of WA. We're in touch with the staff from the cancer department, and they decided to ask for volunteers to come in and paint while the patients were waiting for treatment, because it's a very stressful time. So they coordinated together, and the Watercolour Society have started painting down in the cancer centre.
When I first came here, the first painting I did was a painting of Netherlands Yacht Club, and there was a lady sat and started watching, and she was a visitor, and she basically said, I've always wanted to see how this is done. So I said, sit down and just watch, no problem. And every 15, 20 minutes she said, I've got to go. And I said, oh, what are you going for? Have you got a husband at home? Oh, no. So, well, we'll sit and watch. So she kept sitting, and every time she had about 4 times she went to go. And she stayed all the way through in the end.
What is the purpose of this initiative, having the artist painting in the waiting room with cancer patients who are going to go for treatment?
So what we have is a comprehensive cancer centre here where a lot of people have to come and wait for periods of time to either see doctors or have treatment, etc. And we wanted to just make the environment more welcoming. So we have a beautiful building, we have fantastic staff, but waiting times can be very anxiety producing.
What do you think at first when you heard about this project?
I thought it was an excellent idea, really did, and appealed to me straight away.
How many times have you been painting here for the cancer patients waiting for treatment?
It's about my 5th time. We've been going about 3 months.
And does the atmosphere of this place, unfortunately people here are suffering, affects your inspiration when you paint?
Not really, no, but what I like to do, I like to sort of, I like to give off humour and basically encouragement. And normally a lot of the people really are very keen to paint themselves.
That's what I was going to ask you. Have you inspired any patient to start painting?
Yeah, at least 2 or 3. They're basically gone away all fired up and ready to go and start painting.
What is the feedback do you get from the patients who have been enjoying this initiative?
Our feedback has been amazing. So we've had a variety of things where patients and families have just enjoyed watching what's been going on, admiring the art.
It has been incredible. You know, people who are coming along obviously nervous and not in a good place and so on and so forth, and we find that they just have to watch somebody painting for a while and it just calms them down totally. That obviously is, from our perspective, the whole point of doing this.
I'd been here about 2 hours last week, and one of the nurses came across and said, I just thought we'd give you some feedback. We had a patient when you first came in and he was totally stressed out, to such a point we actually couldn't treat him. And then he basically saw you setting up and he started looking. He said then he came across and you started talking and you were there for 15, 20 minutes. I said when he came back he was totally chilled out and cool.
Considering the themes of the artwork here today, can they choose what they want to paint?
They will be able to, yes, they will be able to choose, any subject.
And how many people have you been having painting for this exhibition this time?
So this exhibition is about 30 paintings from about 18 artists, I think.
We can also buy this artwork, right?
All artwork is for sale. It's very reasonably priced. It's beautiful work, very well executed. The Watercolour Society of Western Australia does have a very high standing.
What do you think that the patients will think once they see again those paintings that, for example, you were painting while they were waiting to be treated for cancer? What memories do you think that those paintings will bring back to their memories? Relief, stress?
I think, having actually had a personal experience of that, you have a sense of relief and release. There's a sense of ownership, and it is a nice way of looking back when they have moved through their journey, because it is a journey, and of course they do have a good success rate these days with cancer. So it is a nice way of looking back.
Laura Noble reporting for Undercurrent.
I hope you've enjoyed this week's program. I'm Lucy Nichol and I will see you next week, same time, same place, on Western Australia's current affairs program, Undercurrent.